From St. Cloud, Florida, this is the Phoenix Rising Radio Network.
All hail the New York Giants! New York Giants!
Welcome to the Doc Show, coast to coast.
Giants win the Super Bowl, Yankees win the World Series. I was happier then.
But if beauty mist can make my legs look good, imagine what they'll do for yours.
Weeknights, 7 to 9 p.m. Eastern.
And the NFL, man, kicks off a week from Thursday.
You know I don't have time for this, but I do.
I'm a New York Giant fan. So last year, what the hell did I have to lose? They started out 0-6. Keep losing. The Giants aren't going anywhere this year.
Excuse me. Spoiler alert.
Everything is going to be okay.
That's what I tell the dog during a thunderstorm.
I know.
Give Doc a call, 407-498-3193.
I need to find a fantasy league to get into. I prefer Yahoo or to start one.
I want all of my defensive players on this side, all players going out for offense over here, right now.
Often imitated, never quite duplicated.
I'm a fantasy football geek, whereas I appear to be such a cool guy.
This is the Doc Show, coast to coast, with Doc Holliday.
Hey, it's 8 o'clock in the east on the news. So anyway, I heard something when I was listening to the chief of police, and he said something I said, what? It takes a tragedy. You've probably heard me say this.
Yeah.
It takes... Don't ask me why. Because understanding humans, how they act and the way they are. But it takes like a tragedy. And whether it's 2 cops being shot or whether it's the World Trade Center, you know, why a smaller area is affected. America came together. People around here came together. They might look at each other kind of funny normally. And they got together over at the First Baptist Church, John Young Parkway. It's big enough to be a convention center.
It really is. It's huge.
So I would say they didn't have any problem getting anybody in. Parking may have been a problem. I don't know.
Well, you know, traffic is always crazy in that part of town anyway. But yeah, it was a little more hectic than usual, to say the least. Roads were closed in the area and things like that. So yeah, definitely a little more hectic than usual. But it's huge. It's huge. When you see the video of the funeral, you know, and when we're done with the show, I'll make sure I get it posted on our Facebook page. So if you did want to go back and watch the whole thing or segments of, scan through it on occasion, you'll be able to do so. But there's just so much of it that was just so amazing. And, you know, it is what it is, right? We just have to, I think what I liked the most was the chief of police. His message resonates what I've been saying or been trying to say. Maybe I don't do as great of a job, or maybe I don't have as big of an audience who wants to hear the message, but he's absolutely right. We need to not just come together at these times, but we need to come together all the time. We need to step up and take our communities back. We need to step up and stand up for our law enforcement officers. You know, I would say 90% of our law enforcement are good. You know, yes, everybody has a bad apple here and there. Every profession has it. Every community has it. But the majority are good. The majority are loving, are caring, are God-fearing. And I, for one, want to take that challenge. I want to take that challenge where we take back our communities and we start to show respect and love and camaraderie to our law enforcement. And, you know, when we go to those town meetings, we had the mayor on earlier this week of Kissimmee, Jose Alvarez, and he even said, you know, he's going to have town meetings in the McLaren Circle area, bring local pastors from the area, from churches to come in and meet with the community and see what we can do to bridge that gap. But 1 or 2 town hall meetings isn't going to do it. You know, it needs to be more consistent, and we can't forget about these communities either. And I'm not saying that law enforcement forgets about these communities, because that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that even those of us that don't live in those communities, we're citizens of Osceola County. You know, and if you're not in Osceola County, whatever area that you're in, and if you have an impoverished area, an area that might be a little rougher than most, step up to the plate. You know, let's come together and show how, you know, if you live in Celebration and people are, you know, in Celebration are known to have a little more money than the average Joe. Well, you know what? Why don't you come together and show the communities that maybe aren't that affluent how we can be one community all together, regardless of where we live? You know, we've got to do that. And people that are living in the areas like McLaren Circle, we need to let them know that it's okay to come forward. It's okay if there's crime in that area, report it. You know, turn these people in, get them off the street, because you can clean up your part of town. You can clean up your neighborhood. You deserve to have a safe place to live. You deserve that. Don't you want that for your children, for your families, for yourself? I know I would want it. So, you know, that I'm going to take that challenge, and I want to see our listeners take that challenge. I want to see our communities take that challenge, and I want to see us respond to that challenge. I think it is the least that we can do. You know, if you have blue lights, don't just take your blue lights down after this week. You know, I think as a radio station and as a radio show, but as a radio station, you know, and just thinking of this now coming out of my head, listening to, you know, Chief of Police, I'm going to challenge every single one of you listening to this program right now, you know, and I'm going to challenge all of you. This may sound like a really simple challenge, and it may sound like it's so not impactful, but it is. So I'm going to challenge all of you who have a porch light, who have garage lights, to go ahead and get blue lights for those porch lights and those garage lights. And let's light up every community in blue. Let's do it. I've done it to my house. I would love to see every house in Central Florida lit up with blue lights. And it may sound corny, and it may sound cheesy, and it may sound like, how is this making an impact? You know how it's making an impact? It's showing your police officers that you support them and that you want to work with them to make your communities better. And that you appreciate that they wear that shield and that they go out there every day and take the chance of not coming home. So I challenge all of you, and here's what I want you to do to show me that you're up for it. And I'll go and do it too. When you get your blue lights up, wherever you may put them in your house, on your back porch, on your front porch, on your garage, I don't care. It's got to be outside so the police can see that you're putting a blue light up for them, not a red light. I don't want the red light. They're going to come into your house and they're going to say, "What's up going on with the red light special?"
Is this Denmark?
You got to have a blue light. So I want you to take a picture. I want you to email it to me, sam@docshowcoasttocoast.com. I want you to post it on our Facebook page, Phoenix Rising Radio Network. Let's flood Central Florida with blue lights in support of all of our law enforcement and in honor of Sergeant Howard and Officer Baxter. And I think that's a simple challenge. I think it's a simple challenge. Go to Amazon right now. I bet you can buy your blue light bulb for 50 cents. Yeah, I just gave Amazon a plug. Because you ain't getting them at Home Depot or Walmart in Osceola County anytime soon. So maybe go to another county. I don't know.
Oh, they sold out.
Yeah, exactly. So that's, you know, I think that's a simple challenge. I think it's something we can do.
I think that if people saw it,
I'm going to do it. I'm going to go take a picture of my blue lights.
Especially those criminal element that, Osceola, they claim, and this is no rack on the mayor. He knows he's got some cleaning up to do, but there are several areas, and these guys knew where they were at. And I'm guessing,
everybody. If you say McLaren Circle, and you live in Osceola County, you know.
You know. All right, well, let's go get some crack. Right. What the hell? That's a bad area. Now, if the guy that shot and killed these two cops really did have PSTD, did I say it right?
PTSD.
PTSD. I get letters mixed up. Then I don't see why he would, and this is just my opine, come all the way from up, what the hell's the name of that road?
Lake Nona, Narcoossee.
Narcoossee Road, from Lake Nona, and make the trip all the way through St. Cloud and all the way into Kissimmee to buy drugs? Something else is going on.
Well, it's been reported, and the New York Daily News actually did a story on this today, because they were reporting on the funeral here in Kissimmee. Well, the funeral was in Orlando, but they reported that it was all over his Facebook page that, you know, he was not a fan of the police, and that if the police knew that, you know, that if the police came in his way, he wasn't even going to give him a chance to shoot. You know, that cops weren't going to have him, he was going to have them. And apparently, there was like, I don't know if it was a leak or an informer, or I don't know how it works with the police department, how they find out about these things, but they were basically tipped off that this guy.
Oh, and people here, they're encouraged to, and also
that he was in the area, and, you know, he's local, and that he, you know, he could potentially harm a police officer if they come into his path. So it's crazy. I mean, I you know, and my heart goes out to this man's mother, and it goes out to her, you know, as a compassionate human being and as a Christian. You know, we're taught to love, to attempt to turn the other cheek. We're taught to turn the other cheek. I say attempt because it's so hard for us to do so many times, you know? And so we're taught all of these things, and it's overwhelming for us at times because we're not like Jesus. You know, we're not perfect. We're human. We're truly human. And it's difficult for us to turn the other cheek. It's difficult for us to forgive. And, you know, she was interviewed by the Orlando Sentinel, Everett's mom. And she makes a valid point. He was failed by the system when he returned from the war. And I agree with that.
And yes, and
I agree with that 110%.
The majority of people who came back and under the Democratic rule, a lot of them were shipped out on George Bush's watch. And then on Barack Obama's watch, things changed. The VA hospitals went to hell.
We need to change that, though.
They didn't get them insurance. They were. You had insurance.
We need to have programs set up for our veterans returning from wars, and even if they're not in war-driven areas per se, you know, we need to, if they've been stationed somewhere remotely, we need to have programs that when they come home to the States, that, you know, programs that help them reacclimate to get out of that military lifestyle that they're so accustomed to getting back into society that is not always regimented and norm.
That stuff is no joke.
Yeah.
You know, I just hate to see it used.
I agree with you.
And it's going to be used in his defense.
I agree with you. I agree with you.
But the murder of both those cops.
I agree with you. And again, you know, it's not to talk about that. That's going to be a conversation and in the months and probably years to come. My point is that, you know, we do fail our veterans, and we need to work on that. And that's a challenge that the chief of police asked us to also focus on. My heart goes out to this man's mother, because no mother ever imagines that she's going to raise a son who is going to go down in life as a cop killer. And, you know, she was interviewed by the Sentinel, and she said, you know, I feel for the officers and their families. I agree. But my family's hurting too, because we're now losing our son, and the system failed him. And you know,
it's a little hard for me to feel bad.
But I feel bad for her.
Well, let me tell you
for her
something.
as the mother.
Because her, as a mother, also made a comment to the press that she saw him starting to get worse.
Yeah, I didn't understand that.
And
I didn't understand why she didn't Baker Act him again, or why she didn't. I know. Look, it's very complicated. It's a very, very complicated situation, and that's not what this show tonight is about. You know, we want to pay respect. We want to.
I'm not here to try anybody.
No, I'm not either. And I'm sorry that this man is sick, and I'm sorry that he didn't get the help that he needed. This incident could have been prevented, and I'm so sorry that it did happen. And, you know, and this is part of coming together as a community, and as walking an example of Christ. You know, what would Jesus do? Well, he wouldn't have convicted him. He would have tried to have helped him. And so I don't know how this is going to all pan out, and how it's going to in turn, you know, affect everyone involved. But at the end of the day, yes, I agree. You did the crime. You got to pay the time. But it's not to negate that there are 3 families impacted by this, and it is very sad. And, you know, my heart goes out, obviously, to the officers' families. And I do feel compassion for this man's mother and his family, because, again, you know, he didn't get the help he needed. Why? I don't know. But that's a question that they all have to answer, and his medical providers and so forth and so on. Anyway,
if he sought treatment.
Well, he obviously didn't. He was Baker Acted and then let go. Obviously, he didn't seek the treatment that he should have been seeking. And why nobody caught it sooner, I don't know. But again, that's the challenge that is put out there, along with coming together as a community to continue to show this love and respect for our law enforcement officers, and working with them, not working against them, to make our society better. Now, the next clip I want to play from the funeral, it's two fellow officers, and they're just sharing their memories on the force. And it's pretty self-explanatory. And they'll introduce themselves. I don't have to introduce them. And you'll get a couple of laughs out of some of this, which is, I don't know, when I at both my grandparents' funerals, it always helped me to have a funny story that I was able to give a chuckle to during the service. So I thought it was good that they could have a couple of laughs, and you'll hear it in just a second.
You got it all ready over there?
Yes, this time I do.
Okay. I did hear one thing. Yeah, a lot of people brought babies.
My name is Michael Bixler. This is Alex Barber. We went through the police academy with Matthew Baxter. Though the class graduated and everyone went their separate ways, we didn't. We stayed brothers. 4 years ago, Matthew Baxter and I started the police academy. Strangers from different worlds. Matt was a tough inner-city kid from Baltimore. I was a dorky college boy from the suburbs of Orlando. Matt's confidence and leadership abilities were quickly noticed by our instructors, and he was awarded the position of squad leader, first squad leader, the squad we were placed in. After 5 months of academic tests, grueling physical workouts, Matt and I would graduate as brothers. Not brothers because we wore a uniform. Alex and I loved Matt like we loved our mothers, fathers, and our siblings. Brotherhood isn't decided by blood. After completing the field training program, Matt and I would realize our dream, working together night shift. For 3 years, we responded to calls together, chased bad guys, and experienced the ups and downs of policing. There's no denying that Matt was a heck of a cop. His monthly stats prove that. I'm not here to tell you today about Officer Matthew Baxter. Enough's been said about that. I'm here to tell you about Matthew Baxter, a devoted husband who fiercely loved his wife, a loving father who dedicated his life to his daughters, and a man I was proud to call a part of the Bixler family. Though Matt kept his personal life hidden from most, he never hid his love from anyone for his wife. Many of our conversations would talk about his love for her, how much he cared about her, and his desire for her to leave this dangerous job. As he said, I can't protect her all the time if she's on the streets. If everyone can bear with me for this, okay? I promise you I'm going somewhere, right? A true testament to his love for Sadia was displayed to me while attending this man's bachelor party. I know. To the wives and girlfriends of the men on that trip, and to the Lord, I apologize. We lied. We found ourselves at a professional dance establishment. I couldn't let him away from me because he was the cool guy and I was the dork. So midway through the night, he grabs me by the shoulder. He says, Bixler, what are we doing in here? My wife is more beautiful than any female in here. What are we doing? That stuck with me to this day, Sadia. It's something I never wanted to tell you, obviously. But, you know, I felt now was the time. When Matt and I first met, he was single, young, no responsibilities. The way every man wishes they could live forever. Our conversations involved fast cars, nice clothes. God, the man could dress. Sorry, Lord. When he had children, he changed. No longer did I get text messages from the car he was looking at buying or the car he was working on. It was his yard. The yard of his house. the mulch he put in, the playroom he built for his daughters. He was so proud of that. We talk about that all the time. It's difficult right now to be in policing. It's a tough time, and one of the things him and I spoke about was life outside of this job. He comes to me and he says, Bixler, could I go get a job elsewhere making more money? It's like, I don't want my daughters to ever want for something and I can't afford it. We talked about that all the time. It was one of the biggest decisions he was trying to make in his life, was caring for his wife and his family. As I saw, as child after child, he was a father only one day I can hope to be. I know Matt wouldn't like me sharing this side about him because he kept it very close. But the last 3 months of last year, I went through some pretty trying times on the job. I responded to numerous medical calls involving the death of infants, which took a serious toll on me, on top of a mutual friend of ours going through a tragedy. I questioned every day coming into this job. When I put this uniform on and drove into the city, I talked to him all the time. What are we doing? We're not making a difference. He used to always tell me, yeah, come on, man, just keep it going. Keep it going. You got this. My attitude had changed at work. I wasn't doing anything. So one day, everyone who's ever worked patrol can understand this. Your Friday weekend shift coming in on your first day. Your Friday's your Monday. Him and I walk out of briefing. He grabs me in a headlock, despite the fact that he was younger than me. He was always beating me up like the bigger brother. He pulls me to his car, and he hands me a gift-wrapped box. And he says, open it. So I opened the box, and inside was this. I looked at it.
Statue of a police officer.
And he grabbed me in
child.
a bear hug. The bear hug where it feels like he's going to pop your ribs. And he put me to the ground. And he said, buddy, that's to remind you why you got into this job. Let's go help somebody. I struggled with a way to close this, and I'll never have closure. Alex will never have closure. The family will never have closure. But I know he's up there watching over us with that smile. How he kind of squinted his eyes and they closed when he smiled. And that's how I'm going to remember him. And I know no matter where I go, he's going to be with me. Thank you.
Is that it?
Yeah, yeah.
That was pretty funny.
I thought it was great. I didn't know where he was going when he was talking about the bachelor party at first. I was like,
you got to throw. You have to throw a little bit of that, because I'm very sure that his wife knew where he was. You know, you got to watch yourself on the bachelor party.
you think?
Yeah, and good idea is to, at this point in time, I was on the air during 9/11. I looked up at the TV we had in the studio, and I saw the first tower. And it looked like a fire had started. You didn't really know what it was. I nudged my partner because he had been threatening to rent this Wesley Snipes movie that he wanted to see, and he didn't think, because we all had DirecTV, all 7 radio stations, and they were in the office, this. He said, if I order it, there's no way they can trim it back to us. And it was probably true. But I didn't want to take a chance. I don't want to get yelled at for a movie he wanted to see, I didn't want to see. And as I keep looking and looking and looking, it was at Channel 4 out in New York, and I interrupted our guest, who to this day is a friend of mine, and I said, I'm going to interrupt. I got to ask a question. Did you order a movie? And he goes, no. I said, hell, we got problems. And from that time, it was 8:46, of course. We're on the air till 5. And in that situation, you all you can do is take phone calls.
You're on the air till 10, right? Oh, that particular day you went on till 5.
I was on the air till 5. And for the next week, before they went to the network, they kept us on until we just didn't have the strength to keep going. We were, if I noticed us repeating ourselves, then we're not really helping anybody. But the phone stayed lit all week. If you knew any of these 2 police officers, you could call 407-498-3193, and you could let it out. And I know I sound douchey when I say PTSD.
PTSD, yes, sir.
Is a weak excuse for killing 2 cops. But that just puts the military trying to find me. I know it exists. Many people that never even went to Iraq or Afghanistan. But cops get it. People that work in jobs where the stress is so intense that they begin to lose their mind. They do turn to drugs because for whatever reason they turned to drugs. It took them away from seeing their buddies get body parts blown off by roadside bombs in Iraq. Because, Well,
and it's like the chief of police said, they experience things that most police officers will never experience in their career when it comes to combat. Unless they were in the military themselves. It's a different type of service. It's not that you're not going to experience things like shootings and so forth, but they're just different.
Well, if you heard the last one that was talking, he had said
Officer Bixler?
Yeah. He had he made a point that he was doubting what he was doing was making any difference because you see the same crime coming out of the same neighborhoods.
Well, and in his particular case, he was responding to infant fatalities, which is, I always say, you never know where a police officer is coming from, so don't judge them when they're with their demeanor initially.
Yeah, it's just not a good thing. If you get pulled over, and we've seen them, they're just mad. Or they think we did something, and they ask for your, and I always made sure I kept mine right there. Then they take it, and then they come back, and they say, "Do you know why we pulled you over?" And I said, "I've been thinking about that, and I always thought the answer depended on whether he was going to let me go." So I said, "Yeah, I might have been going a little faster than I should have, maybe more fast." And, he nodded. It was the last time this happened to me. He goes, yeah, I'd say 90 miles an hour in a 55 zone. That's some pretty good running. I said, well, I just got this car, There was no traffic. It was in the middle of the night. And and I said, well, I'll be honest with you, I'm surprised you were able to catch me. Because this thing purrs. He laughed. He gave me the strictest of warnings that I'll be watched for. And then he went away. And I didn't get a desk ticket. I didn't get a ticket. I just got a notice of that's the only time we're going to give you a break. That, I never really had any cop problems. There are certain police departments that have reputations, and it's because, Maitland cops, what do you hear? What do you think when you first hear Maitland cop?
Don't speed near on I-4 near Maitland, because they will stop you.
They're madmen, but they're also responsible for Eatonville. Eatonville is a community of people who like to steal white people's stuff. And they come up into Maitland, and they break into cars and this, that, and the other. And they have to go in there all the time. And any time one of them's in there, in the neighborhoods, calling up the TV stations saying we're being profiled, this is BS. And so, and the TV station will go, talk to, whichever police department it was. And they said that you had no reason to go there. And I talked with a guy about this, and he's like, I had every reason. They can't use the description of the suspect, because at that time, and still today, they could lose that on profiling.
Right.
Well, the suspect, he's a black guy, and he had these kind of pants on and this shirt, and and I mean, Eatonville's right there. Right then and there, that gets tossed out.
And again, what you're saying, and it all goes back to what the chief of police is calling us all to do as citizens, and come together to try to work with local law enforcement so that these situations are fewer and far between. Nobody's saying we're going to get rid of them 100%. I would love to say that that's a possibility, but in order for that to be a possibility, we would have to convince every human being on the planet to be a God-fearing individual and, do the right thing. And that's a mighty big task, that's a mighty big undertaking. But I do think that each of us as individuals can absolutely 110% start to live by example and go out there and just simple things. If you see a police officer at racetrack or a 7-Eleven or Wawa, buy them a cup of coffee. Although I will tell you this, people say buy their cup of coffee. Normally in those establishments, usually if the owners are pretty cool, they're getting their coffee for free anyway.
And breakfast.
Yeah, usually. I mean, most honest business owners don't charge officers for that kind of stuff. But anyway, but if you see them, say thank you. Stop and say, hey man, be safe out there. Stuff like that, because that small statement can go a long way, and allow them to help you. Don't fight against them, and just remember that, back to what Doc said, they're going into some of these neck of the woods that it's not always easy for them. And Officer Bixler stated that in his, tribute to Officer Baxter. You don't know where they're coming from, and you don't know what they're going through. And this is a tough career. Infant fatalities, suicide. He met his wife on the force, and their first call to save a life was a suicide victim. Or not a victim, but somebody who attempted suicide. You don't realize what these men and women are going to respond to on a regular basis. It's not all laughs and giggles and writing a speeding ticket or responding to a fender bender. It's not like that. Sometimes it's a hardcore reality of tragedy. And until you have the courage and the strength and the faith and the bravery to put on that uniform, to train, to do that job and be one of God's angels here on earth to do his work, to protect us, you have no right to say their job is easy. You have no right to say you understand what they go through. Because at the end of the day, you don't. You don't unless you wear that uniform. And even we as family members of people who wear the blue, we don't fully understand. We understand a little bit better. We have a little more compassion for it because we don't ever want to get the call that the tour was over. But we don't fully understand. We don't know what they see. So that's my 2 cents for the challenge. Take the time to try to sit back and be a little more compassionate towards our law enforcement. I'm all for it with the captain.
All right, go ahead and take the last break.
Okay.
And you can finish up.
Okay.
All right?
Sounds good.
All right, there you go. Much love to the families of police officers who do not return home and for not a lot of money.
Amen to that.
There's just not a lot of money involved. And you'd be surprised what jobs don't pay a lot of money. But anyway, 42 minutes past the hour.